Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of your UFC/MMA hot takes. As always, if you want to be in these videos in the future, first, subscribe to the channel. Second, go to my community tab and find the weekly post that I put out and comment your hot take underneath that, and you will most likely be in the video that following week. I put these out pretty much every Thursday, and the video comes out that following Monday. So again, go ahead and do that if you want to be in the future videos. But let's get right into it, and let's get right into me reacting to your guys' hot MMA takes. Starting off with, we have Francis Ngannou is the best mixed martial artist of all time. He started the sport late and is able to compete with the best of the best in the different arts. Put some respect on my African king. Now, do I think that Ngannou is the best heavyweight of all time in the UFC? No damn way. But I think in general, maybe you can kind of argue that now that since he had such a close fight with Tyson Fury, maybe he might just be the overall best heavyweight person. But then again, he doesn't really even have a win in boxing. But you can kind of argue this and not argue at the same time. In the UFC, no way. I think Stipe Miocic is still the best heavyweight of all time. But as a whole, he has been one of the best heavyweights to ever do it. Again, transitioning from MMA to boxing is no easy feat, and being able to be competitive and almost considered a robbery, have a win over Tyson Fury, not really, but arguably have a win over Tyson Fury is one of the best things you could do as a heavyweight, and he is that in that conversation as a combat sports best heavyweight. Moving on, Jamahal Hill will smoke Jiri Prochazka and Alex Pereira. I don't know. It depends how well he heals from that Achilles injury. Let's be honest here. He's going to be out of the sport for a very long time. He's still fairly young. Jamahal Hill is. I think he is in his lower 30s. So he can recover quite well from this Achilles injury. But I think in terms of styles, he does match up better against Jiri Prochazka than he does against Alex Pereira. Who knows what will happen? What kind of Jamahal Hill we'll see in the future? He could be great, but I don't know if he smokes these guys. I think he probably can beat them, but I don't know if he absolutely wipes the floor with them and just whoops on Jiri Prochazka and whoops on Alex Pereira. Now, things always change in the UFC. Some guys beat this guy, some guy beat that guy, this guy gets hurt. We thought this guy was ass, but now he's good after he beat this person. There's always a ever-ending enigma of the UFC just changing our minds. The sport, in all honesty, the sport doesn't make sense. Let's be honest here. And Jamahal Hill can damn well go out there and just smoke Jiri and smoke Alex Pereira. It's definitely in the realm of cards. It's definitely a possibility. But do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. Who knows what can happen in the future? But I think right now, as it stands, I would probably take Alex Pereira to win. But we'll see what happens between him and Pereira. That fight might tell us a different story than what I'm thinking right now. Now, this one is kind of funny. The UFC ain't all that. It's only the most popular one. Any Bellator or one fighter could become champion in the UFC. It's not their fault. The UFC keeps snatching their aging stars. So I don't know what this really means, but I don't think that any Bellator or one fighter could come over to the UFC and just simply be champion. Now listen, there's some guys at Bellator like Usman Nurmagomedov, Johnny Eblen. There's some guys in that division or in that promotion that could come over to the UFC and give guys some problems. But do I think they could be champion in the UFC? No. There's a reason why Bellator is second rate in terms of the UFC. There's a reason why one championship is also second place to the UFC. If I had to rank them, it probably goes UFC 1, obviously, then one championship, then maybe PFL, and then maybe Bellator. I mean, it depends. You can mix and match those two. I don't care. But there's a reason why all those promotions fall behind the UFC. One thing, because the UFC is the biggest, but the UFC also has the biggest talent pool. They have all the best fighters in the world, and it will be extremely difficult for a lot of those guys to move. Like, what guys have we seen from Bellator come in and be UFC champion? It's literally only Eddie Alvarez. It's actually only that one person. Everybody else that we've seen has been successful kind of in the UFC, but they've never been that person, the guy, the champion. So I think it's going to be years upon years before we see anybody come from Bellator, if they're still around by that time, before we see any of them jump to the UFC and become a champion. I don't see it happening. And we see this all the time, guys who are kind of washed up in the UFC or old, go to Bellator, some of these other promotions, and have success there and actually fight for a title at some time. So Chandler's pretty much the only one in recent memory to have success here, and he's never been champion. And he's kind of looked like, you know, not the most skilled guy of all time. I like Chandler, he has power, but is he really the most technical guy you've ever seen in your life at lightweight? No, but he is good and he is skilled, I guess. Rankings don't really matter. It's for marketing the best. Fight the best. It's all about styles. An unranked fighter could beat the champ on any given day simply because they're stylistic nightmare. Now, I do kind of agree with the fact that, you know, rankings kind of might not matter in certain fights. You know what I mean? Like, I say once you get to the top 10 or not top 10, sorry, top 15 of, you know, every division, there's some guys who are unranked who could beat some of the top 15 guys. There's some up and comers every now and then. I think Hamzat was always a ranked fighter when he was unranked or when he's making his debut in the UFC. So I can kind of see your point where some guys who are unranked can come into like fight a top 5 guy or a top 15 guy and have success and maybe even win a fight there. But I don't really see anybody who is unranked just showing up and beating the champion. I see rankings more of like a tier system, if you know what I mean. Like the top 15 is like C tier, the top 10 is B tier, the top 5 is A tier, and the champion's S tier. And when you watch an unranked fighter, you can just see the skill difference between him and like an actual ranked guy who's actually promising and good. When I watch Paddy Pimblett fight versus when I watch Charles Oliveira fight, I see the skill difference. And that's the case in almost every single division in the UFC. Now, styles do matter, but I think styles really mainly matter when you get into the top 5 of the division. Sometimes outside of that, it does matter, but I think when everybody gets to a point where they're so good in the top 5 or top 15, pretty much everybody has an equal amount of skill. So it's more about the styles and determining who will win a fight most likely. Like, I think Oliveira is a better striker than Islam. I think Oliveira is a better jiu-jitsu artist than Islam, but Islam has way better wrestling, and that makes him a stylistic nightmare for Charles Oliveira. Whereas Charles Oliveira versus an unranked guy like, again, Paddy Pimblett, I see everything that Charles Oliveira has. He has better striking, better jiu-jitsu, better wrestling, better pretty much everything than Paddy Pimblett. And that's the reason why Charles Oliveira is in the top 5 at lightweight and why Paddy Pimblett isn't. One thing, because Oliveira's been doing it for a longer time as compared to Paddy, but as well as the skill difference in there. If Paddy Pimblett was really a top 5 guy, we would know if he was a top 5 guy just by seeing him fight and seeing his skill level. The eye test can't fool people, and that's why we have rankings to help everybody understand where these guys are at in terms of their skill. So thank you guys for watching this video. I surely do appreciate it. Again, if you want to be in these videos in the future, make sure you subscribe to the channel and go to my community tab. You'll see the post. It'll say, what is your hottest MMA hot take? Leave a comment there and you will most likely be in the video next week. I might change this series to be every 2 weeks because it is kind of filling up or taking a space of the video every single week. So I might do every 2 weeks to space it out more, because my entire channel right now is pretty much just hot take videos because it's a once a week thing. So this might be an every 2 week thing just to get it out there. Keep that in mind. I might skip out this week and do one next week, or 2 Mondays from now. Yeah, 2 Mondays from now. We'll see what happens, guys. I'm sorry. Again, thank you guys for watching. I'm out of here. Peace.